Commander Hannah Park stood at the viewport of her small ship, the Wanderer, watching stars blur past. The ship was old but reliable, much like Hannah herself. At 38, the lines around her eyes told stories of battles fought both in war and in the political arena. 3 years had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Confederation, and humans were already being pushed to the outer systems, treated as second-class citizens. Another day, another credit, she muttered, rubbing her tired eyes. The Wanderer's interior was cramped but functional. The control room housed just 3 stations, with Jin's navigation console positioned to the right of Hannah's command chair. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and the faint aroma of the rice they'd had for dinner. "Commander, incoming transmission," said Jin, his fingers dancing over holographic controls. Jin had been with Hannah for 2 years, ever since she'd rescued him from a labor camp on Proxima B. He was young but skilled, with quick eyes that missed nothing. Hannah straightened her worn uniform jacket. "Put it through." The hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. A merchant appeared, his face marred by a recent burn. "Commander Park," he began, voice shaking. "The settlement on New Hope has been hit. They're calling it pirates again." Hannah's jaw tightened. "Casualties?" 53 dead. 200 missing. The colony's main reactor was targeted precisely. "That's the 3rd attack this month," Hannah said, her mind already connecting patterns. "Send me all the data you have. Flight paths, weapons signatures, everything." After the merchant signed off, Hannah spent hours analyzing the information. The ship's lights dimmed to night cycle, but she continued working, comparing the recent attack with previous incidents. Jean brought her a cup of bitter coffee substitute, watching as she manipulated data in the air around her. "Something doesn't add up," she said. "These aren't random attacks." Jean leaned closer. "What do you mean?" "Pirates are opportunistic. They hit targets of value and leave. These attacks." Hannah pulled up a 3-dimensional map showing attack vectors. "Look at the precision. They targeted communication arrays first, then defense systems, then critical infrastructure. This is military strategy." "But which military?" Jean asked. Hannah's fingers moved through the holographic data, isolating engine signatures and weapons patterns. She cross-referenced them against the Confederation military database she'd smuggled out when she was discharged. The computer worked for several minutes before displaying a match. "That's impossible," Jean whispered as the result appeared. The screen showed a 98% match with Emperor Tay's personal fleet. The 7th Imperial Squadron, elite ships that answered only to the Emperor himself. "The Emperor is targeting human colonies," Hannah said, her voice hollow. "And making it look like pirate attacks." Jean shook his head. "Why?" "We've done nothing to threaten the Confederation." Hannah pulled up reports from her military contacts. "Because we terrify them. Look at this." She displayed charts showing species development rates. Humans were advancing technologically at 3 times the rate of the next fastest species. They were adapting to space travel more quickly than any civilization in Confederation history. "We're unpredictable," Hannah continued. "Most species took centuries to adapt to space. We did it in decades. We form unusual alliances. We solve problems in ways they can't anticipate." Jean stared at the data. "So they're eliminating us before we become a threat?" Hannah nodded slowly. "The attacks are strategic. They're targeting our most promising colonies while maintaining plausible deniability. If they officially attacked us, it might create sympathy for humans among other species." "What can we do?" Jean asked. "We're just one ship." Hannah closed the holographic displays with a sweep of her hand. Her eyes had the determined look Jean had learned to both respect and fear. "Emperor Tay will be on Lux Prime next week for the century celebration. Security will be tight, but not impossible to breach." She turned to face Jean fully. "I need you to contact some old friends of mine. We're going to need help." "You're not suggesting we..." "The Confederation won't act without proof," Hannah said firmly. We need the Emperor's personal records, and there's only one place to get them. Jean looked pale but nodded. I'll make the calls. Hannah turned back to the viewport, watching the stars streak by. For 3 years, humans had tried to be good citizens of the galaxy. They'd followed rules, accepted second-rate status, and hoped for eventual acceptance. That time was over. They think we're a threat, she said quietly. Maybe it's time we showed them why. The safe house on Lux Prime's moon was small and dirty. 5 people crowded around a table looking at building plans projected in the air. The blue light made their faces look ghostly. This is suicide, said Day, running a hand through his short black hair. As a former Earth Special Forces operative, he knew impossible missions when he saw them. The Emperor's palace has more security than a military base. We might as well try to breathe in space. You didn't have to join, Hannah replied simply, zooming in on the palace's west entrance. Her eyes showed no doubt. Their small team included just 5 members, 3 humans and 2 alien sympathizers. Mina sat across from Hannah, her fingers constantly moving through the air as she tested security protocols. The youngest of the group at 26, she had been the top hacker in Earth's Cyber Defense Division before quitting when she saw how the Confederation treated humans. The 2 Centaurians, Ro and Pell, stood slightly apart. Their blue-tinted skin and forearms made them stand out among humans, but their species had also suffered under Emperor Tay's policies. They had joined not out of love for humans but hatred for the Emperor. The palace security uses 3 layers, Mina explained, displaying the schematics. Outer ring uses standard motion and heat detection. Middle ring adds genetic scanners that check against approved species profiles. Inner ring is the problem. Neural pattern scanning, Hannah finished. They monitor brain activity. If you think like an intruder, they know. Day snorted. So we need to not think about breaking in while breaking in? Wonderful. No, Hannah said, leaning forward. They're looking for predictable behaviors. Most species think in patterns. Humans don't. We're contradictory, emotional, intuitive. Their systems struggle with us. Ro, the older Centaurian, clicked his mandibles together. This is why they fear you. Your unpredictability. Exactly, Hannah nodded. And we'll use that fear against them. Over the next 3 days, they prepared. Mina created false identities that would pass initial security. Day gathered weapons that wouldn't trigger metal detectors. The Centaurians provided DNA samples from allies in the palace staff. The night before the mission, Hannah found Day sitting alone, cleaning his knife for the 5th time. Having second thoughts, she asked. No, he said without looking up. Just thinking about how we got here. 3 years ago, humans were celebrating joining the galactic community. Now we're planning to kill their leader. We're planning to expose a murderer, Hannah corrected. The killing part is optional. Day finally looked at her. You really believe that? Hannah didn't answer. The Emperor's century celebration brought thousands of dignitaries to the palace. The team entered separately. Mina and the Centaurians posed as service staff. Day infiltrated as security. Hannah used diplomatic credentials from a minor human colony. The palace interior gleamed with precious metals and exotic materials. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings so high they disappeared in shadow. Servants from 100 worlds carried trays of food and drink. I'm in position, Mina's voice came through the nearly invisible earpiece. Security systems accessed. You have 3 minutes before the loop is detected. Hannah moved casually toward the restricted area. Day created a distraction with a staged argument with another guard. The Centaurians released specialized drones that confused the genetic scanners. The neural pattern scanners were the true test. Hannah emptied her mind of purpose, thinking instead about the architecture, the food, random memories from childhood, anything but her mission. It worked. The scanner registered confusion but no threat. Emperor Tay's private chamber was surprisingly simple. No gold or jewels, just clean lines and functional furniture. The Emperor himself stood by a window, looking out at the celebration lights. Tall and slim, wearing simple white robes, he appeared almost humble. But Hannah knew better. "You should fire your security team," she said, closing the door behind her. Emperor Tay turned slowly. His face showed no surprise, only mild interest. "Humans. Always so direct." His voice was soft, almost pleasant. "Call off the attacks," Hannah demanded, activating her wrist computer to display evidence of his crimes. "We know your fleet has been targeting human colonies. I have proof." The Emperor studied the data with polite attention. Then he smiled, a cold expression that never reached his eyes. "Your species is an evolutionary mistake. Too aggressive, too unpredictable. The galaxy was peaceful before you arrived." "Peaceful or stagnant?" Hannah challenged. "Order is preferable to chaos. Your kind brings chaos wherever you go." He sighed. "In time, you would have been welcomed. After proper genetic adjustments to make you more compatible." Hannah's eyes narrowed. "You mean after you changed what makes us human?" "Precisely." The Emperor moved toward his desk. "A shame you discovered our plans too soon." His hand moved smoothly toward a hidden compartment. Hannah saw the subtle shift in his posture, the slight tension in his shoulder. Without hesitation, she drew her weapon and fired. The shot was perfectly placed. Emperor Tay looked almost impressed as he fell. "Unpredictable indeed," he whispered before his eyes glazed over. "All vessels in Sector 7, be advised, humans have assassinated Emperor Tay. This is an act of war." The announcement blared across every communication channel, repeating in 23 different languages. Aboard the Wanderer, the crew listened in tense silence. Hannah gripped the ship's controls tightly as she guided them through a dense asteroid field. Rocks the size of buildings tumbled past their viewport. The ship shuddered with each course correction. "Did they have to use the word assassinated?" Day muttered from the weapons station. "Makes us sound like terrorists." "To them, we are," Hannah replied, not taking her eyes off the asteroid field. Her face was calm, but sweat beaded on her forehead. In the ship's secure hold, a special container hummed softly. Inside, Emperor Tay's head floated in a stasis field, his neural patterns preserved. The decision to take his head had been Nina's idea, the only way to access the Emperor's private memories and prove the conspiracy against humanity. "Grand Marshal Sun has deployed the Imperial fleet," Nina reported from her station, fingers dancing across holographic controls. "They're blocking all routes to Centralia." Jean pulled up a tactical display showing red triangles representing Imperial warships spreading across all major space lanes. "They've covered everything. Jump points, wormhole entrances, even the old trading routes." Hannah studied the star chart silently. The Wanderer was fast but couldn't outrun Imperial cruisers. They needed to reach the Galactic Senate on Centralia to present their evidence, but every path was blocked. Her finger traced a path through an empty section of the map. "Then we take no routes. Plot a course through the void expanse." Jean looked up sharply. "That's insane. No ship has successfully navigated it." "No non-human ship," Hannah corrected. "We think differently." The void expanse was a region of space avoided by all Confederation vessels. Strange energy patterns disrupted navigation systems. Bizarre gravitational fluctuations could tear ships apart. Some said the laws of physics themselves were broken there. "Even if we survive," Ro said, his blue skin pale with worry, "the journey would take months." 17 days, Mina interrupted, not looking up from her calculations. "If we push the engines to maximum and take these specific vectors." She sent the course to the main display. Day whistled. "That's threading a needle while riding a falling star." "Can we do it?" Hannah asked simply. The crew exchanged glances. Then Jean began plotting the course. "I hope you're right about humans thinking differently," he said quietly. "The Imperial fleet searched every ship leaving Lux Prime, but they never considered that anyone would flee toward the void expanse. By the time they realized their mistake, the Wanderer had disappeared into the swirling chaos. The first days were terrifying. Strange lights danced across the viewports. The ship's systems constantly malfunctioned. Artificial gravity failed 6 times. Navigation had to be done manually, with Gene staring into the void until his eyes burned. "This is what the Emperor feared," Hannah said on the 5th day, as they gathered for a meal of protein bars. "No normal, rational species would attempt this journey. But humans. Humans are crazy enough to try," Dave finished with a grim smile. On the 8th day, they encountered a twisting tunnel of energy that the ship's computer couldn't identify. Most species would have turned back. Hannah decided to fly straight through it. "The electromagnetic signature matches our hull frequency," she explained when the others questioned her. "I can feel it's right." "You can feel it's right," Pell repeated slowly. "This is why Centaurians don't explore unknown space." But Hannah was correct. The energy tunnel cut 3 days off their journey and shielded them from Imperial sensors. Meanwhile, Mina worked tirelessly to decrypt the Emperor's neural data. The stasis field preserved not just his head, but the electrical patterns of his thoughts. With specialized equipment, these could be translated into memories, knowledge, and secrets. On the 14th day, as the ship navigated a region where gravity reversed every 6 hours, Mina burst onto the bridge, her eyes wide. "I've found something," she announced. "This conspiracy goes deeper than we thought." The crew gathered around her portable screen. What they saw made even Day, who prided himself on being unshockable, step back in horror. "The Emperor wasn't acting alone," Mina explained, bringing up files dating back centuries. "There's a council of elder species. They've been eliminating disruptive civilizations for thousands of years." The screen showed records of extinct species. Some had been destroyed by engineered plagues. Others by artificially triggered solar flares. Some simply disappeared, their colonies systematically exterminated. "They all shared traits with humans," Mina continued. "Adaptability. Unpredictability. Rapid technological advancement." "How many?" Gene asked, his voice hollow. 57 confirmed extinctions," Mina answered. "Humanity would have been number 58. Hannah stared at the evidence, her face hardening. "They're afraid of change. Of anything they can't control." "The Senate," Day said slowly. "Half the representatives are from these elder species." "We'll need more than just the Emperor's head," Hannah realized. "We need to broadcast this to everyone. The younger species need to know what's been done to keep them subservient." As the Wanderer continued its impossible journey through the void expanse, the crew worked to prepare the evidence. 3 days remained until they would reach Centralia. 3 days to prepare to shake the foundations of the galaxy. "They wanted war with humanity," Hannah said, looking out at the swirling chaos of the void. "They're going to get one." The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of the neural playback device. 6 faces bathed in blue light watched Emperor Tay's memories unfold before them. The images were crisp but carried a slight echo, like memories usually do. "Stop there," Hannah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Play that section again." Mina's fingers moved across the controls. The memory rewound and played again. Emperor Tay stood in a circular room. 12 figures sat in high-backed chairs, their features obscured by ceremonial hoods. Only their hands were visible, some with scales, others with tentacles, a few almost human-like. "The human problem grows worse," Emperor Tay was saying. "Their colonies expand faster than we predicted. Their technology adapts too quickly." A figure with 6-fingered hands leaned forward. "Are they truly that different from the Iconians?" "Worse," the Emperor replied. "They solve problems in ways we cannot predict. They form alliances across traditional boundaries. If allowed to spread, they will destabilize the order we've maintained for eons." "Then the solution is the same," said another council member. "Begin the reduction protocol." Emperor Tay bowed. "It has already begun. The attacks appear as pirate activity. The humans suspect nothing. The memory faded, and the crew of the Wanderer sat in stunned silence. 57 species, Nina whispered, reviewing the data she had extracted. All eliminated because they showed the same traits as humans: adaptability, creativity, aggression tempered with empathy. Jean brought up images of extinct civilizations on the main screen. Beautiful cities now empty. Artwork from species no one remembered. Languages no longer spoken. The Iconians, he said, pointing to a race of elegant beings with copper skin. Their crime was creating an artificial intelligence that could feel emotions. The council called it an abomination. The Lith, they added, indicating crystalline beings. They developed faster than light travel independently, without following Confederation guidelines. They were gone within a year. Hannah watched another memory playback. This time, Emperor Tay spoke with just one other elder, in private. Humans are the most dangerous yet, the Emperor confessed. Do you know what one of their diplomats said to me? He said, rule should serve life, not the other way around. Such thinking is poison. The elder nodded. Their empathy makes them unpredictable. They will defend even enemy species if they believe an injustice is occurring. The Confederation cannot function with such chaos. The memory ended, and Hannah's hand curled into a fist. They killed 57 species, she said slowly, because they couldn't control them. Because they were different. The Senate must see this, Day insisted, pacing the small command deck. Not just the assassination, but the whole truth. Every representative needs to know what the elders have done. The Wanderer had emerged from the void expanse 2 days earlier, damaged but intact. Now they limped toward Centralia Prime, the capital world where the Galactic Senate had convened an emergency session to name Emperor Tay's successor. Getting into the Senate chamber won't be easy, Jean said, displaying the security measures around the government district. After the Emperor's death, they've tripled the guards. Ro and Pell, the Centaurian allies, had been unusually quiet since seeing the Emperor's memories. Now Ro spoke up. Our people were told the Iconians destroyed themselves in a civil war. We studied their fate as a warning against internal division. His 4 hands trembled. It was all a lie. The younger species make up 2/3 of the Confederation, Pell added. If they knew the truth, they'd revolt, Nina finished. Hannah stood and walked to the viewport. Centralia Prime filled the view, a gleaming jewel of a planet. Beautiful, orderly, and built on genocide. We need to broadcast the Emperor's memories to all Senate members simultaneously, she said. No private viewing that could be dismissed or covered up. The Senate uses a secure internal network for voting and information sharing, Nina said. If I could access it. You'd need to be in the central chamber, Jean pointed out. The signal is isolated specifically to prevent hacking. Hannah nodded grimly. Then that's where we'll go. I'll bring the Emperor's head directly to the Senate floor. That's suicide, Day said, echoing his words from days earlier. Hannah turned to face her crew. Her eyes were hard but clear. Maybe. But what's the alternative? Run and hide until they hunt us down? Wait for humanity to be erased like the 57 species before us? She shook her head. No. The truth deserves to be heard. Those extinct races deserve justice. Through the viewport, the lights of Centralia Prime twinkled like stars. Somewhere on that perfect world, the elders were planning to select a new emperor who would continue their policy of controlled extermination. The Wanderer will need repairs before we can land, Jean reported. We have 26 hours. Make it 12, Hannah replied. The Senate votes on succession tomorrow. As her crew rushed to prepare, Hannah looked once more at the stasis field containing Emperor Tay's head. His eyes were closed, his expression peaceful, as if he'd died believing his secrets would die with him. They'll see it all, she promised softly. The Great Hall of the Galactic Senate was the most beautiful room Hannah had ever seen. Huge windows of colored glass let in light from Centralia's 3 suns. 1,000 seats arranged in rising circles filled the chamber. Each seat held a representative from a different world. The voices of 1,000 species created a constant hum that sounded almost like music. Security guards stood at every door. Weapons scanners checked everyone who entered. After the Emperor's death, no one took chances. Ready? Mina's voice came through Hannah's earpiece. Ready, Hannah confirmed softly. Their plan was simple but dangerous. Using security codes taken from the Emperor's memories, they had created perfect fake identities. Hannah posed as an aide to the human representative, who rarely attended sessions. Mina had hacked into the Senate's communication system from a maintenance room below the chamber. Day, Jean, and the Centaurians secured escape routes. No one expected to leave alive, but they had to try. Hannah touched the container strapped to her side. Inside, Emperor Tay's head floated in a stasis field. The technology kept his brain tissue alive enough to access his memories. It felt heavy against her hip. The Elder Council is seated, Jean reported from his position. All 12 are present. Hannah spotted them in their special section. They wore grand robes with high collars that partly hid their faces. These were the beings who had ordered the death of 57 species. Who planned to add humanity to that list? Senator Kyung, the temporary leader after the Emperor's death, stepped to the speaking platform. Tall and elegant, with shimmering scales that caught the light, he raised his hands for silence. Today we gather to select a new emperor, Kyung began. Our beloved Emperor Tay was taken from us by human terrorists. This act shows why strong leadership is needed now more than ever. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. And so we must select a new emperor who will continue Tay's legacy of peace. That was the signal. Hannah pressed her hand against the main door control panel, uploading the Emperor's security override. The massive doors slammed open with a boom that silenced the entire Senate. All eyes turned as Hannah walked deliberately down the central aisle. She wore simple clothes, not the fancy robes of politicians. Guards moved to stop her, but seemed confused by the security codes still flowing from her fake identity chip. Stop that human, one of the elders shouted, recognizing her from security alerts. Hannah reached the center of the chamber. Guards finally broke through their confusion and moved toward her from all directions. She had perhaps 10 seconds. You speak of peace, Hannah said, her voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics. Let me show you Emperor Tay's idea of peace. She activated the stasis field release. The sealed container opened with a hiss. Emperor Tay's preserved head tumbled out, rolling slightly on the polished floor. Gasps and cries filled the chamber. Some representatives stood in shock. Others turned away. The guards froze, weapons half raised. Peace? Hannah's voice echoed through the stunned silence. Is this your idea of peace? She pressed a button on her wrist. Mina's program activated. Every screen in the chamber suddenly displayed Emperor Tay's memories. The evidence they had collected played for all to see. The memories showed the Elder Council ordering the destruction of the Iconians. The images were clear, planetary bombardments disguised as natural disasters. Cities burned. Millions died. Next came the Lith, their crystalline bodies shattered by engineered viruses. Then the gentle Moki, their colony ships sabotaged. Species after species, all destroyed not for any crime but for being different. For thinking differently. For changing too quickly. Finally, the screen showed Emperor Tay discussing humanity's fate. They must be eliminated before they change everything, the Emperor's voice said clearly. 57 species before them have threatened our order. Humans are the most dangerous yet. The Senate erupted in chaos. Representatives from younger species shouted in rage and horror. Some rushed toward the Elder Council, demanding answers. Others sat in stunned silence. Emperor Tay didn't fear humans because we're violent, Hannah announced to the horrified assembly. He feared us because we're free. Because we question. Because we change. She turned to face the Elder Council directly. Tell them the truth. Tell them how many civilizations you've murdered to maintain your control. Guards finally reached Hannah, surrounding her with weapons drawn. But it was too late. The truth was out. Across the chamber, representatives from the younger species were demanding answers. Some were physically confronting the elders. The Confederation was built on genocide, a representative shouted. Everything we believed was a lie. As security officers grabbed Hannah's arms, she didn't resist. She saw Mina being taken by other guards. Through her earpiece, she heard that Day and Jean had been captured too. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. The elder council members were being surrounded by angry representatives demanding explanations. The perfect order of the Senate had collapsed into shouting and accusations. Grand Marshal's son approached Hannah, his face grim but his eyes showing something almost like respect. "You've doomed your species," he said quietly. "The Confederation will tear itself apart." Hannah smiled as the guards led her away. "No. We've freed the galaxy from lies. What comes next will be messy and difficult. But it will be real." Through the windows, she could see ships rising from the capital city. News of what happened in the Senate was spreading. The old order was crumbling. And humanity, for better or worse, had changed the galaxy forever.